Second season of Unrivaled is hot. Unrivaled stars across the league itself are speaking out on world topics. College basketball in January is nothing but fierce and fiery, and the Olympics are just around the corner. Stay tuned. It's going to be a hot one.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Mack Truck, a.k.a. your worst nightmare. Mack Truck, a.k.a. your worst nightmare. Mack Truck, a.k.a. your worst nightmare. Mack Truck.
From the locker room to real life, this is the Mack Truck Podcast. My name's Mack, and we're talking sports, culture, and everything in between. Let's get into it. Listen, finally get a chance to get back on the realm of women's sports, and I feel bad because sometimes the sports realm itself has so much going on, and it feels like women's sports have kind of been overshadowed with all the worldly things and topics going on. But I'm making a pledge to make myself better about making sure I am talking about the one thing that I love, which is sports, especially women's sports. So we're going to get right into it. The second season of Unrivaled is hot. Brianna Stewart, to start this out, Brianna Stewart makes a statement in the Unrivaled League. Okay. She's standing in the middle of the court with a sign that says abolish ICE. And the midst of athletes speaking out isn't new in terms of worldly topics, how people feel, et cetera, et cetera. Personally, I love it because there's this awesome thing called freedom of speech and freedom of protest. And the fact that people seem to think that, just because she's a female basketball player and, her and Nafisa Collier, co-owners of the women's 3-on-3 Unrivaled League, the off-season league, people seem to think that just because you're an athlete, more or less a female athlete, you don't get to have a say in how opinions should work with worldly things, which is absolutely not the case. But this is not the first time, again, that we've seen female athletes, especially, speaking out and using their platforms to bring awareness to a certain situation with things happening inside the world as its generalization. Outside of sports, I love to see athletes speaking out because athletes are human beings as well. Female athletes are human beings as well. Just because they play a sport does not make them less of an athlete. Just because they get paid professionally to play a sport or compete in an athletic activity does not mean they are less of a person. They are still a human with thoughts, feelings, opinions, and, opinions in terms of good, bad, ugly, and in between. It drives me nuts that people are like, oh, all the 9 people that are going to watch the Unrivaled League. Well, that shows me how much you actually know about sports because Unrivaled is literally in its second season and it's blowing out things out of the water. It's blowing out the NBA G League. It's blowing out, the scouting combine reports and everything for college football going in the NFL. Like, it's blowing out some of these other major sports, especially with the Olympics coming around the corner literally next week, which we'll get into here in a little bit. The fact that people seem to think that athletes need to stop talking and not have a voice is absolutely asinine to me. And I don't quite understand why it's such a big deal that athletes, are speaking up and stepping out about the things that are going on, but you don't have a problem with what's going on in the world, no matter how you lead. And I've gotten into some conversations, kind of just turning this back into sports. Sports is not political. Sports has become political. There's a difference. Sports itself, athletic ability, athletic talent is not a political thing. If you can play the sport better than somebody else, whether male, female, or however they identify, if you can perform the sport at a high level and at a competitive level, that is what it's all about. There's also obviously the entertainment portion of said sport, athletic task, if you will, but sports are not political. Politics have been brought into sports. But getting back into the actual realm and the meat and bones of the show for today, Unrivaled has been nothing short of fiery. I love it. And I can sit here and admit the first half year that Unrivaled during its inaugural season was around, it was hard for me to get into because I'm not used to, watching and looking at 3-on-3 basketball competitively outside of the Olympiads. However, Unrivaled has literally opened up a new avenue for WNBA players, college players that are getting into the league. It's essentially kind of created its own segue for a women's G League, if you will, like a women's professional G League. 3-on-3 competitive basketball. There's no like town affiliations in terms of, the team names and where they're from and all the things. They're clubs, and it's great to see because you get all these kind of ball mixtures and interesting combinations of players from all the WNBA teams collectively, and some of the overseas teams, and some of the college prospects coming into play before the upcoming WNBA draft and WNBA season, provided there is one, and we're going to get to that in the next couple shows rather. So current team stats for the second season of Unrivaled, and you can catch Unrivaled Fridays through Mondays on TNT, HBO Max, as well as True TV. And it's hot. Okay. Like I said, you can also get all your stats, www.unrivaled.basketball. And again, if you're into the sport, if you're actually into basketball, you watch the sport, you find different ways to ingest the sport, whether it's, full contact football, flag football, 5-on-5, basketball, men's and women's. If you're into the sport, if you're actually paying attention to the sport, you're finding any way to ingest it, which is why I always tell people, you cannot sit there and tell me you watch basketball when there's more than just NBA basketball. There's more than just men's college basketball. There's more than WNBA basketball. There's Unrivaled. There's FIBA. There's so many realms of basketball. So people can't sit there and tell me that, they watch all kinds of basketball. Do you watch the other side of it? And most of the time, the other side is the women's league. Rolling into our team stats, the Laces currently are at number 1 with a 6-1 record, averaging just about 33 rebounds, 14 assists, and 75 points in total so far this season. The Mist at number 2 with a 5-2 record, averaging about 34 rebounds, 12 assists, and 74 points on the season. The Rose are at number 3. And technically, we have a 3-way tie in terms of our records. So number 3 is the Rose at 4-3, averaging about 30 rebounds, 12 assists, and 74 points as well across the board for the season. The Breeze are also at number 4, a 4-3 record, averaging about 37.5 rebounds, 12.1 assists, and 74 points again across the board. Number 5 is the Phantom, also at 4-3 record, averaging about 31.5 points rather, almost 16 rebounds and 72 points across the season. Number 6 comes in at Team Vinyl with a 2-5 record, averaging just about 32 rebounds a game, 13 assists, and 68 points on the season. Number 7 is the Hive, 2-5 record as well, just averaging about 23 to 24 rebounds, 9 assists, and 67 points on the season. And finally, at number 8 currently are the Lunar Owls with a 1-6 record, averaging 34 rebounds, 11 assists, and 64 points. The top 5 points leaders for this season so far currently as we're rolling in, because it is Friday as well. Again, happy Friday if you're joining us here on the live feed. It is Friday, so you're going to be able to catch all those Unrivaled games throughout the entire season, or throughout the entire weekend rather, and moving up into the start of the week with those Monday night games. Top 5 points leaders for this current Unrivaled season. Chelsea Gray for the Rose is averaging 30 points currently. Marina Mabry for the Lunar Owls is averaging 26 points. Alicia Gray for the Mist averaging 25 points. Paige Beckers for the Breeze averaging 24 points. And Leah Edwards for the Lunar Owls averaging just about 22 points at 21.7. Top 5 assist leaders for your Unrivaled season thus far. Chelsea Gray again at the top for the Rose, averaging just about 6.5 assists. Paige Beckers for the Breeze also averaging about 6.5 assists. So we do have a tie. We have a tie for first place, a tie for third place, and then a fifth place person here at the top 5. Marina Mabry and Kelsey Plum both are averaging just about 5.5 assists. Marina Mabry for the Lunar Owls, Kelsey Plum for the Phantom, and Courtney Williams for the Vinyl, averaging just about 5 assists per game this season. Like I said, you can catch the full season stats on www.unrivaled.basketball. You can also, again, watch the Unrivaled games in season Fridays through Mondays on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. And listen, like I said, and I don't know how many times I can just stress the amount of gratitude I have that I still get to do this type of thing. I still get to be in a space with you guys, talking, arguing, debating, analyzing the thing that we love the most here on the Mack Truck Podcast, the Mack Truck Show, whether you're listening to the live version or the studio edit radio version, is sports. Sports is what is supposed to take, everything away. You're supposed to be able to get away from all the craziness in real life and the real world. Not that sports is not a real world, but in terms of, all the crazy things happening in our world right now, and, in terms of government and politics. I love the fact that I still get to come on here and have this platform and speak sports with you guys. So I appreciate you getting involved and being engaging. I think you guys, again, you can join me pretty much twice a week, couple times a week now. We're starting to get back into the season where we're finally able to get multiple shows back out, multiple platforms. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at the Mack Truck Pod. You can also follow the Mack Truck Pod on TikTok as well, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me pretty much on any social media site as well. But we're moving into a new lane, same drive. Let's get into it. Listen, women's college basketball in the month of January has been absolutely nothing short of ridiculous and overwhelming in some of these strangest ways. And what I mean by that, starting off the top, the Iowa State Cyclones went on a rough streak, losing 5 of the last 7 before they started their current win streak. Part of that has been due to power forward Addie Brown missing a myriad of consecutive games due to a lower leg injury. Before she left due to injury, she was averaging just about 13 points and 9 rebounds per game, kind of adding to that high-low post action between her and Addie Brown and Audie Crooks, rather. So the list of Iowa State losses up until they just, again, started to rebuild a win streak towards the end of January here. They lost to Baylor by 2 points, 72-70. The first time they played Cincinnati, they lost 71-63. They lost to West Virginia, 83-70, Colorado 68-62, Oklahoma State 86-58, Cincy again 93-68, which they ended up starting their win streak with this. So this now list that I'm reading is the current win streak that they're on. They beat Cincy just about a week and a half ago, 93-68, and they beat Arizona 90-65. And as we're looking at the myriad of things, everybody keeps wanting to hop on this strange narrative that, Iowa State's not going to, make the playoffs. They're not going to make March Madness. When in reality, it's just like Audie Crooks has said after the past couple losses that she's, done very well in, personally, game stat-wise. You don't want to be playing your best basketball in January. You don't want to be peaking in January. You want to start to peak about mid-February, end of February, right before March Madness. So I err on the side of agreeing with Audie Crooks and largely agreeing with the fact that I would much rather get some of these unexpected losses out of the way now so we can start to build our momentum back. We're going to start to get people fresh off of injuries, provided they're not completely out for the season. So it's just, it's crazy to me that people have a different standard for women's basketball in terms of win ratio, win percentage, and bracket placement than they do for men's. It makes no sense to me. And kind of adding to this current win streak that they have. So now they're on a 3-game win streak. They've beat Cincinnati. They've beat Arizona. They just beat Texas Tech on this past Wednesday, the 28th. They're due to play UCF at Hilton Coliseum tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on ESPN Plus. UCF is at an even 500 at 10 wins, 10 losses. Iowa State is 17-5 on the season currently. And I'll just tell you this. Audie Crooks, and it feels like no matter how many games that Iowa State has lost or struggled to get the win in, she has been able to find a basket. She has been able to find double digits somewhere along the way. And what I mean that in the past 7 games, she's dropped double-digit points in scoring, folks. Like, she has dropped double-digit points in scoring. And again, goes back to my fact that I said a couple shows ago, is how is she not getting the same attention as the then ever grateful Caitlin Clark when she played for Iowa? While yes, I will agree that Audie Crooks isn't as pivotal or controversial as Caitlin Clark was, but not every athlete is the same when it comes to being quote unquote polarizing. Okay. In the past 7 games, Audie Crooks has scored 17 points against Arizona. She scored 24 points versus Cincinnati, 15 points versus Oklahoma State, 17 points versus Colorado, 22 points versus West Virginia, 23 points again versus Cincinnati, and 26 points versus Baylor. So if you're listening to our list, I kind of flipped it just in terms of our stats. Iowa State, like I said, is 17-5 overall, and they're 500 in the Big 12 at 5-5 in terms of conference play. What kind of frustrates me is why are the standards different when it comes to women's basketball? Like, there is literally a such thing as a double standard. Like, I don't think people quite understand the fact that double standards also, and really, when I say also, I mean also and especially, are more prominent in sports. It's rather frustrating to kind of understand is why are we holding such a different standard to female athletes and female sports? Because you wouldn't think to do it with men's sports. You wouldn't think to do it with men in general. So why do we feel like it's okay to do it in women's sports? Women's sports don't all yell anything. And kind of just going back into just, kind of our stats and reports from different teams across women's college basketball, UConn remains at the top of the women's basketball AP top 25 poll at number 1, currently undefeated at 21-0. They look to keep the streak alive this past Wednesday when they played Xavier. And when I tell you that game itself was nothing short of a domination, I mean, they beat Xavier handily, 97-39 in UConn. Okay. Sarah Strong literally averaging 19 to 20 points this season, just about 9 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and is shooting just about 60% from the field. AZ Fudd also having herself a great season as a senior here, 17 points on average, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and is shooting just over 50% from the field on season. The Texas Longhorns women team, another team that's been a resurgence in women's basketball since the re-edition of Rory Harmon after tearing her ACL in 2023. Madison Booker is having a tremendous junior season. The Texas Longhorns stay at the top at number 5. At the top 5 at number 4, rather, having just about a 20-2 record, losing to LSU 70-65 and losing to South Carolina 68-65 at the top of the season with a combined 8-point differential with those 2 losses. Madison Booker in her junior season, again, averaging just about 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists, and is shooting 51% from the field. Again, Rory Harmon having a little bit of a down season, kind of being just about a year and a half post-op, averaging just about 9.5 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, and shooting just about 50% from the field. Rory Harmon does also have 1 year of eligibility left due to injuring her ACL in 2023-2024. So we're starting to see some of these teams that we've watched the past couple of years in the tournament in March Madness. We're starting to see them peak. They're not necessarily peaking right now in terms of, the pure dominance that we've seen before, but it's still early-ish in the season in terms of before we step into those bracket formations and things leading into the March Madness tournament here. So it's crazy to me to think that we're at the end of January. Like, it's literally January 30th. I'm talking to you right now, talking women's basketball, talking teams peaking. It's crazy to me. And when I say crazy, it's also crazy being a fan of the University of Iowa women's basketball team, University of Iowa sports, and the fact that the basketball team for Iowa, second year for now head coach Jan Jansen, okay, second season post Caitlin Clark, post Gabby Marshall, post Kate Martin, post Sydney Falter, okay. The Iowa Hawkeyes have literally cracked the top 10. Again, finally, after the Caitlin Clark era. And unfortunately, it's always going to be known as the Caitlin Clark era because of what those teams did when she was a part of them. It's not a knock on what's currently happening, but the Iowa dominance of college women's basketball is not new. It's not new, okay? It is very much a thing. But when you have a team like a South Carolina, when you have an LSU, when you have a Texas, when you have a UConn, when you have all these blue blood teams that have just created dominance and kept the dominance by, maybe having an offseason and then turning around and winning the national championship. And then you have a Caitlin Clark-led team for 3 seasons. You get to the first round of the March Madness tournament and you lose. And then you go to the finals and you lose the final matchup against South Carolina. You turn it around 180. You beat South Carolina to get to that last championship game, and you lose to LSU and Angel Reese and a Falaje Johnson and a Kim Mulkey to 8 points. Like, that just goes to show you Iowa is literally a couple pieces away from regaining a full slate of dominance. And what I mean by that, again, Iowa has cracked the top 10 right now, currently sitting at number 8. They beat Ohio State 91-70. They unfortunately lost their winning streak just yesterday, losing to USC 69-81. But before the loss, they were on an 8-game winning streak in January, literally almost clean sweeping the entirety of the Big Ten. They beat Nebraska 86-78. They beat Northwestern 67-58. Indiana by 3 points in a very tight game, 56-53. Oregon 74-66. MSU 75-68. And Maryland 85-78. Okay. Like, it's crazy to me how they've been able to rebuild so fast after Coach Lisa Blue retiring, after that 2024 WNBA draft, and then the 2025 WNBA draft, and essentially having Lucy Olson replace the Caitlin Clark and just not having enough pieces around her to kind of turn it 180 again for a 3rd year straight. And kind of some other really unfortunate news just coming out of the University of Iowa camp. Taylor McCabe, who has been on those championship run teams with Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin, tore her ACL and is now out for the rest of the season. She tore that versus Ohio State in a very tough game against Ohio State. Ironically enough, Taylor McCabe's sister Peyton also suffered an ankle injury playing for Drake versus Murray State later on that day. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of collegiate sisters playing at 2 different schools getting an injury on the exact same day. I'm not sure that I've ever heard that. It's crazy that it happened, and it's very unfortunate. We wish Taylor and Peyton nothing but, speedy recovery. Hopefully we can get, Taylor back for another season now that she's, injured again. Very unfortunate, very, you never want to wish injury on somebody. You never want to, be excited that a player got hurt, whether they're in college or whether they're a professional athlete. Nothing drives me nuttier than seeing people celebrate injuries of people. On top of that, having a tremendous sophomore season, Ava Hayden is just out of this world as a sophomore, averaging 17 points, 8 rebounds, and is shooting just over 64% from the field. Forward Hannah Stolke is starting to get her groove back in her true senior season, firing up an average of 15 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and is shooting just over 55% from the field. Iowa right now, currently, before they go into their February slate of play, Iowa is 18-3 on the season. They're slated to play UCLA this coming Sunday in their away stint right now. They are in California as we speak. Wildly enough, UCLA has an 89.5% chance to beat UCLA at home. To beat Iowa at home. UCLA is number 2. They are 20-1. Iowa is 18-3 at number 8. This game could go either way. I mean, Lauren Betts is averaging 16.5 points per game. As far as points, rebounds, she's averaging just about 9 points, but she also have Hannah Stolke, again, averaging just about 9 rebounds. Ava Hayden averaging 17 points, and Chit Chat Wright, who also, as a freshman, is starting to catch up to some of those records that Caitlin Clark and other point guards have made. So women's college basketball is here, folks. Women's college basketball is here. It is in your face. We are getting geared up for March Madness, and you love to see it. Okay. Now, apply this to how you watch the game. And what I mean by that is we want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, In My Bag Apparel and Truth Barber Studios. Whether you're in the game, in the gym, or on the couch, In My Bag Apparel and Truth Barber Studios fits the lifestyle. Make sure you're hitting them up on Booksy.com, Instagram at Faded by Duke, and at InMyBag_2023 for all things In My Bag Apparel and customs in terms of your merchandise, in terms of your brand, in terms of all things Mack Truck Podcast as well. We are sponsored by them. That is where you get your merchandise. When you get a haircut, when you need to freshen up your style with the clothing that you have, you book through Booksy.com with Gary Duke Williams, the freshest barber in the Midwest. Make sure you tell them that the Mack Truck sent you, because if you didn't, you would not know they existed unless you're already supporting small businesses, because that's what we do here. We support small businesses and we bring everybody up with us. Different topic, same energy. Let's roll it. Listen, the Olympics, okay, are literally days away. It's January 30th, 2026. The Olympics are literally 7 days away, a week. Okay. And why this is so important, because the Olympics have come so far in terms of its visibility and awareness of female athletes. Okay. Did you know that women were allowed to compete in the Olympics in the 1900s? Specifically, the 1900s Paris Olympics, to be exact. Competing in limited sports, 22 women competed in 5 different sports: sailing, tennis, croquet, equestrian, and golf. Making up a small percentage of competing athletes, 22 out of 997 athletes were females that year. The 2024 Olympic Games was the very first Olympiad to be gender fluid, or had gender parity rather, meaning they had an equal amount of male athletes and an equal amount of female athletes. Okay. When I found this out, I was floored to think that it took till 2024 to have an equal amount of female athletes to male athletes in the world's biggest international athletic competition is crazy to me. Okay. And you can get this information at theolympics.com. You can also get this information from the Good Game podcast with Sarah Spain. If you have not listened to that show, you need to. If you are an avid sports fan, avid analyst, avid female athlete, from a female athlete's standpoint, athlete analyst, Sarah Spain is your girl. Okay. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Sarah Spain is where I get a lot of my inspiration from. And she is one of the best female sports broadcasters, analysts out there. Like, this is a time for women's sports to shine. Make sure you're listening to all these shows, all these suggestions that I'm giving you guys. But listen, that's a wrap on the Mack Truck Podcast today. Okay. Again, big shout out to you. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you rocked with us, make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing us everywhere. Again, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere you get your social media, anywhere you get your podcast is where you can find us. My name is Mack. It's been a pleasure to be with you here today. We'll see you on the flip side.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Mack Truck, aka your worst nightmare. Mack Truck, aka your worst nightmare.